A man that once told me, give me 2 weeks. When I said, what about my people in the village? How do they use Bitcoin? He said, give me 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, he tweeted and said, Oken, this is Machankura. Please welcome KG to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you everyone who's here, and thank you, Oken, for the introduction. That's a true story, by the way, so if you don't know, basically, what was this, 2021, 2022? Yeah, people were talking about, okay, you need to send Bitcoin to people without an internet-connected device. We've had USSD, and basically, I felt like it's something you could do in 2 weeks. And yeah, it is actually something you can do in 2 weeks. Shout out to Masai. We grew up together, actually. I used to be a poet. I used to be on his level, and then I retired, right? How we met, I wrote a poem on Facebook. I put it up, and then he wrote a response to it. I felt like he was trying to fight me as a man, right? But we're friends now, so yeah, it's all good. Today's talk is called The Dream, right? And the alternate title is Living the Dream, right? Depending on at what point in life you are, you may be already living the dream, right? And shout outs to you, well done. You have actually made it. But in this talk, what we want to do is have an exercise where we actually see if you're living the dream. So let's start off. The dream, and basically, like any dream, it's fuzzy, it's blurry. You don't really know what you're looking at, right? And it's nothing, there's zero sats to your name, right? So if you're living the dream, you currently have 0 sats to your name. And that nothingness causes you discomfort. Right? So, of course, discomfort causes you to act, and when you act, you have to work, right? Preferably, you work on something of value, right? And with that value, you can exchange it for, wait, my clicker. Yeah, you can exchange it. Where do I look when I'm clicking, actually? Oh, the timer, okay. You can exchange it for some sustenance, right? You were discomfortable, so you need some sustenance. And now, with that discomfort, of course, with the sustenance, you still have discomfort because, well, you got rid of the discomfort, but then now you're back at 0, right? So now what do? You need to work. Ooh, this clicker. Oh, yeah, you need to work. You need to find something of value. Ooh, this clicker is aggressive, guys. Exchange that for, I'm pointing at the screen. Okay, sustenance, and then find something to do for work of value, and you're back at 0 again. That causes you discomfort, and then you have to exchange that value. It's a nightmare, basically. 0 work, and now this is no longer a dream. This is a nightmare. So what do we do? How do we get rid of this discomfort? All right, so let's get out of this dream, basically. Back to 0 again. All right? Now you need to figure out what you're going to do. Next slide. What are you going to exchange? Next slide. And how are you going to get a payment? You're starting from 0. Of course, you want to receive, and now what is the quickest way for you to get paid? Starting from 0, Bitcoin is the quickest way for you to get paid. Question mark, is it? You have 0 capital. Is Bitcoin the quickest way to get paid? Yes. Nope, cash is. Cash is the quickest way for you to get paid if you don't have capital. You don't even have a phone, right? But space-time is a limitation. So space-time means you can only work for people in your locality and at the current time, right? So you cannot work for someone who's not right in front of you and who won't be able to give you that cash right now, right? So what actually also happens is that Bitcoin, when you are trying to expand space and time, is the quickest way to get paid. right? So if you want to work for more people from further away over a longer period of time and get paid Bitcoin, that's the best way to go. Nothing can beat Bitcoin with regards to defeating the constraints of space and time. And it's also the safest way to get paid. If you're getting paid in cash, guess what? On payday, somebody's going to mug you, right? Who has been mugged before? Fun times, right? It's a great experience. I love getting mugged. It's one of the things that reminds you that, life is short. You could die at any minute. And yeah, but Bitcoin is cryptographically secure. That's why it's safe. And you could do other things to keep yourself secure, like hide your wallet. Other wallets hide the icon as well. So if somebody's on your phone, they don't know you have a wallet. And you could also have a PIN to lock it, right? And it's also the cheapest way to get paid, relatively cheap, right? So in case you don't know, Capitec is probably the cheapest bank in South Africa, but it has the longest queues at the ATMs because the cheapest way to get paid or to make a payment is cash because the cash doesn't have any fee. And even if your fees are relatively cheap, they're not as cheap as cash, right? But of course, Bitcoin has things like Lightning, where if you have a direct Lightning channel, you can make a payment for free without having to pay a fee. And now back to the dream, right? So, okay, cool. You're working, you're getting paid. What is happening? You're able to sustain yourself, right? Now you're able to work. You're getting money. Now you're spending money. How are you spending money? Okay, you can make a scan payment thanks to the wonderful work that Carol is doing, right? So you're getting paid. Money Badger's doing magnificent stuff. By the way, whoever was at the speaker's dinner, sorry for people who are not at the speaker's dinner, that dinner was paid with Bitcoin thanks to the work that Money Badger's doing, right? And yeah, so hopefully Ngako is going to convert whatever system they use that allowed me to pay in Bitcoin into a system that everyone works up in there and is able to scan a QR code and pay in Bitcoin, right? Hopefully, soon, right? Then send, you are also able to send Bitcoin directly to anyone else who's willing to receive it. This is the dream yet again. Of course, even Thando is doing a similar thing to what Money Badger is doing in South Africa. If you haven't yet been in Kenya, I was in Kenya, I think, 6 times ever since Thando launched, right? So to me, it allows me to walk to Kenya anytime I want, spend as much money as I want, and walk back. That's how convenient Thando is to use, and like to send a lot of love to Sabina and Jason for the work that they did. So yeah, they effectively allow you to live on proof of work money. I love this statement because if you translate it to any other language, it's so impressive, right? Zulu, somebody translate this to Zulu. Afrikaans, somebody translate this to Afrikaans. Okay, Xhosa. Okay. Anyone else? Xhosa, Zulu, Ndebele. Okay, that's the Zulu, huh? What's Tsonga? You're reading on Google Translate. Yours doesn't count, right? Okay, cool. So, I've read a thing where I translated this in multiple languages, and I just like how it sounds in all the languages, right? Live on proof of work money, right? And if you're getting paid in Bitcoin, living the dream, spending Bitcoin, that's the dream, right? It's still fuzzy. You're not sure what you're looking at. Now that you can spend it, and you could sustain yourself, hopefully you have enough change so that you don't end up in a state where you're on zero again, because then, that nightmare where you're always working and you're not doing stuff, right? But let's say that sustenance, that nightmare, basically we don't want to live in this nightmare. We want to live a beautiful life. We want to live the dream without discomfort, right? So what if instead of working for sustenance, what you do is work. You don't just work, you hustle, right? But you don't just hustle, you grind, right? And you grind with a capital grind, like you really do that, right? And while you're grinding for sustenance, you don't just, eat everything, you conserve, right? So that you have a surplus. Now we're talking. Now this is the dream. And what do you do with that surplus? Of course, the magic word that starts with an S while the clicker's not clicking, save, right? And guess what? Bitcoin is the greatest way to save too. Can you imagine that? That is a wonderful dream, right? And yeah, so of course, Bitcoin is the best performing asset with regards to savings. So if you've ever had the privilege to buy Bitcoin when Luno launched in 2013, Bitcoin was around 1,000 Rand, if you don't know. Right? It went low because that's what Bitcoin does. So it gave some people the opportunity to buy it maybe for a few hundred rands. And if you had the privilege of forgetting about Bitcoin for maybe 7 to 10 years, you would have been a millionaire. But a lot of people didn't forget, so it got up to like 500,000 rands, and then they sold their Bitcoin, and now it's at 1.5, 1.4 million rands. It got as high as 2 million at some point. So yeah, but it's the best performing asset for saving. So buy whatever amount of Bitcoin, maybe 1,000 rands worth of Bitcoin today, and see where it will be in 10 years' time, right? Maybe it will follow the same trend. Maybe it will go down. I don't know, but from what we've seen so far, it did quite well. It could do worse, but it is what it is. Volatility is part of its DNA. So that, for me, is the dream. And the dream is taking your surplus, doing some work, building, right? But not just building in a permissionless way. So now that you have a permissionless way to build, you can conserve the rewards you get from that, and you can build some more. But you don't maybe know what to build, so you can learn, right? I discovered Bitcoin in 2017, and it took me 4 years of learning about Bitcoin before I felt confident enough to say it would take me 2 weeks to build something, right? And that's something turning into Machankura, right? But that's not 2 weeks, 4 years. From 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then seeing what people are talking about. Hey, from everything I've learned, condensing all of that in 2 weeks of work, right? And it's not really 2 weeks of work because there's still so much work that needs to be done so that somebody else can get to live the dream, right? And somebody else can then build. And this is the other thing I like. Everyone who's a builder here is basically building on proof of work money, but collaborating away, again, because this is also the cheapest technology to build on. I used to build on Twitter. I had built this other app called Fred Tweets. Before Twitter, I had Freds, by the way. And then I learned that if you have a third-party Twitter client, what Twitter will do is limit the amount of logins that can actually happen on your Twitter client, because Twitter makes money off ads, so they want as many people on the main Twitter client as possible. So your app will never be too popular, right? Oh, and this past week, something called Claude was happening, right? And yeah, it's a bot running on Claude code. If you're a programmer, you should know this. AI stuff. It's not important. It's a wave. It's going to pass anyway. But yeah, so if you don't know, it's all good, right? So the company that runs Claude code was like, yo, we don't like that. We first and foremost, cease and desist. Don't use our name. Right? So he changed the name to Maltbot, an ugly name, and then now it's OpenClaw, so better name. But yeah. Second thing, we are banning the people who used our system through your bot. Right? So imagine in my Twitter client, it got popular. Twitter was already limiting the amount of people who can log in via my client, but then it says, if anyone dared to use your client instead of ours, we deactivate their account. And people were paying customers at the same time. And then, yeah, so cheapest technology to build on is Bitcoin because it doesn't have any of these constraints. And now that is the dream. But the dream isn't yet done. You are building, you are learning, and you can collaborate. And you can collaborate with almost anyone, not just in this room, in the world, right? I'm wearing BitKey, right? So What I'm building is compatible with what the guys at BitKey are building, right? We've never had a meeting, we've never sat down together, but I already know, okay, my users can send to BitKey. I can already tell them, okay, if you have this much Bitcoin, you should consider getting yourself a BitKey for your savings so that that Bitcoin can last however many years, right? And yeah, other thing with collaboration is that, this is you and your dream, right? But some people see in color. Right? You don't have to see in color, but if you collaborate, you benefit from the fact that other people see in color. So now your world goes from this fuzzy void into this. Okay, what's happening here? This is community, right? Okay, this is different. What's happening in the community? And I believe we are in the age of communities. Of course, wonderful work Herman is doing with Bitcoin Ekasi. Show him some love, show him some love. And basically, if you also had the privilege to be here, the day before the conference, we had the African Bitcoin Circular Economy Summit, right? Circular economies from all over Africa were on the stage talking to each other, sharing, this is what we're doing, this is blah, 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 building, collaborating, so on and so forth. Impeccable stuff. Right? So the age of communities, I specifically use this term because of the game called Age of Empires. Right? Who has played Age of Empires here? Okay, a few old people. So it's good to see that most of the house is young, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, the old young people ask the old people how Age of Empires works, right? But here's a small overview. The Age of Empires puts you in the Stone Age, right? So you start in the Stone Age, and the aim of the game was to upgrade, right? Evolve from Stone Age, Iron Age, so on and so forth, until you have a beautiful castle community like this, right? And yeah, so effectively what I think is Bitcoin is that, basically. If Bitcoin actually works, you could be on barren land anywhere in the world and evolve from whatever barren land age is to Stone Age, to Iron Age, to the Information Age, so on and so forth. And communities about the commons. Bitcoin is probably the best way to coordinate on all of these commons, right? Bitcoin is probably the best way to see how much assets do I have, right? In the game, they use gold and iron and food and whatever else. Of course, it's great to keep track of this, but the game also lets you know with these many houses, you can have this many people in your village. If you want more people to do more work, you need to build more houses. Some of us live in very highly populated areas that don't have enough houses to house the number of people that are there. And it should be possible for us to say, okay, we're going to build more houses, more shelters, and whatever else, so that people are living comfortably. Because if people are not living comfortably, they're going to, die from disease and whatever else. Okay, the game, back to it again, Age of Communities. Civilization is actually a function of technology. Right? Bitcoin, best technology we've had so far, if you ask me. Because a lot of other technologies are leveraging Bitcoin. Right? You don't have to use Bitcoin directly, but there's things, concepts, ideas in Bitcoin, decentralization, so on and so forth, that allow people to build crazier, better things, even though they're not using Bitcoin directly. And the other thing with Age of Empires is that it allows you to research, right? Okay, so let's say you only have an axe. What type of military can you have? You can have a militia, but what if you go and evolve into the next age? You can have an archer, you can have a man of arms, you can have a spearman. So next age, the castle age, you can have a crossbow, whatever else. And it's not just military stuff, it's constructive stuff like a mining camp, lumber camp, gold mining, so on and so forth. Things that actually get civilization to the next level, right? But yeah, unlike Age of Empires, where you can control multiple people in life, it has to be voluntarily, Right? So whatever it is you want to do with your community, you need to be able to convince people to say, yo, I believe this is what is going to work for our community. Right? And I believe if you are willing to, work on this journey with me, we can get to the next place. We can evolve. We can take what was barren and actually build a metropolis. Right? We should have some metropolises in Africa. Right? If you've been to Brazil, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, sorry, my bad. Right? I'm like, wow, this city's big, and we don't have cities that big in South Africa, where the traffic is torture, right? So yeah, I think I've covered most of my message, so I'm just going to skip these slides because the most important thing is that the age of communities is here, right? And you could use Bitcoin to build Rome in your lifetime. Right? So yeah, cool, that's me.